If your league's trade deadline is over, you're going to have to hit the waiver wire even harder than ever down the stretch to improve your team. Looking at this week's choices, you might say this list, it is kind of different, but let's get specific. We're going to target categories, players that can help you in very specific ways, whether you're playing catch up in a roto league or if you want to just get a little bit more of an edge in a head to head league. Whatever the case is, I'm going to tell you which players might help you and how. Let's start with a player who honestly I didn't think I would have to talk about the rest of the way because James Wood really should be rostered pretty much everywhere in 12-team leagues, and for some reason he's not. I mean, barely over half owned in Yahoo leagues. Now, maybe there's some teams out there that just aren't paying attention, but come on, there's no reason not to have him if he's out there on waivers. This guy obviously has massive raw power that he hasn't even yet tapped into. But let's see what he is doing lately. He's getting you some steals. He's starting to hit for average, and soon the power will come. Yeah, that means he's going to be a 5-category stud. Just in August alone, he's hitting 333 with 4 stolen bases. And as I've mentioned before, Washington is the team that attempts the most stolen bases by far in the majors. They're going to continue to give him the green light. And of course, if you ever even seen Wood, you can just tell raw power is not an issue. And home run totals, well, no, it's not there yet. It's going to come around sooner than later, but he's definitely hitting the ball hard. In fact, right now, in his very small sample size, his 56.2% hard hit rate, if he were qualified with enough at-bats, that would be tied for 4th in all the major leagues with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So yeah, he's hitting the ball pretty hard. I understand that in most competitive leagues and a lot of leagues that viewers like you are in, he's probably snatched up, but obviously not everywhere. I still get questions saying, is he legit? You know, is this guy really worth picking up? Yes. Now, a very different kind of rookie outfielder who is now definitely worth your attention. Pete Crow Armstrong, barely owned anywhere outside of the deepest of leagues, but that should be changing too. Now, Pete Crow Armstrong will not be getting you much in terms of power, but he can definitely help you in terms of steals. In fact, you might be surprised to know he's already over 20 steals on the season, despite not starting the year on the major league roster. So you look at his season stats, yeah, 22 stolen bases is nice, but his batting average is 205. But again, let's look at the most recent picture of what is happening here. It's a long season. What has he done since the second half? Well, I'm glad you asked. Just in this past week, he's hitting 304. He's also scored 3 runs, got 3 RBIs. And the steals continue to come on a regular basis. The good news is PCA is in there pretty much every day because even if the bat isn't there, his defense is outstanding. That's why he's going to retain an everyday job because, look, this is one of their top outfield prospects for a reason. It's not just the bat, it's also the glove. Now, he does only hit 8th in the lineup, which isn't ideal, but still, he's getting the green light to run as well. He's producing. The batting average is starting to come around. He really should be rostered in more places, but especially if you need steals, he should be your top target. All right, so you're looking just for power here. Well, I have to say, I'm willing to take a chance on Eloy Jimenez for 2 reasons. First of all, he's actually healthy as of right now, last time I checked. And he's in Baltimore. That's right. He was the one lucky player who got exiled and traded before the deadline from the White Sox to the Orioles. Bit of an upgrade. Now, the concern with Eloy is that, well, now that he's with the Orioles, maybe he won't be an everyday player. Planning maybe to platoon him, he could have been on the weak side of platoon as right-handed hitter. But no, since acquiring him, he'd started 4 straight games until Thursday where he just pinch hit. And he seems to be happy in Baltimore, 8 for 17 in his first 4 games with the Orioles. Now, he also has 4 RBIs as well, and that's the appeal for him. He does, of course, have massive home run power, but just the fact that he's in that lineup and getting the hit, even if he's batting 7th or wherever they put him, he can still drive in plenty of runs. And again, while it doesn't show up necessarily on the stat line, he has a great hard hit rate too, 93rd percentile so far. Trust me, I've been jilted by Eloy plenty of times in the past too, so I understand if you're really reluctant to buy in, but so far so good for him. We know the potential is there, so again, you're looking for some help with RBIs, and hopefully at some point the home runs will come too. Give him a chance. How about batting average? Really hard to pick up in that category, but if you're in a weekly head-to-head league, well, then in that case, it definitely is more helpful to pick up a guy like Michael Conforto. Now, I know at this point we all wish we would have picked up Tyler Fitzgerald or just drafted him. Nobody saw that coming, okay, fine. So if you didn't get Tyler Fitzgerald, how about another guy in that same lineup who is hitting 3rd? And we know Conforto from his days in the Mets, he has shown power, but really, 20 home runs is about right for him in a season, but he can definitely hit for average. And he's doing it lately. In fact, he's been one of the hottest hitters in the majors over the past week. He's coming off another two-hit game where he also scored 2 runs, drove in 2 runs. That gives him a 6-game hit streak, and 4 of those games have been multi-hit games. So if you've been streaming Conforto since August started, he's been giving you a 409 average with 7 RBIs. Again, his placement in that lineup for a team that's now started to pick up offensively with guys who have come out of nowhere like Fitzgerald and Helio Ramos. Hey, it seems like a pretty good spot also for some RBI help. But again, the main calling card here is the batting average. I don't know how long it will last with him, but I keep saying it. If a guy's this hot, you stream him, you pick him up, and you ride it out as long as it lasts. And the same is true of another veteran left-handed slugger. That's Jock Peterson for one of the hottest teams in the majors. Arizona Diamondbacks, 8-2 in their last 10 games, and their offense has definitely picked up since the deadline. He's always been one of these players who has those really high peaks and those really low valleys. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, well, then you drop him. But right now, you should be in on him because he's one of those D-backs players who has been very hot, and especially in the power category. This is where you look for your help with home runs. And his hot streak has been longer. It's going back now for 2 weeks. Over the past 2 weeks, he's hitting 385, 4 home runs, and 11 RBIs. Now, the downside with Peterson is, he almost always sits against a left-handed pitcher. So, still in there most days, but you're going to want to check if you're in a daily lineup league, when he's sitting, when he's not. And until I right, we go with another D-back, a guy who's really more of a utility player for fantasy, but Geraldo Perdomo has been helping, and not necessarily in the way that you would expect. And I don't mean power. Yes, he did just hit his first home run of the season the other day, but I don't know how long it'll be before he hits another home run. But he's actually picking up some RBIs despite hitting at the very bottom of that order. Over the same past 2 weeks, he's been hitting 325 with 10 RBIs. That's surprising for a guy who, again, doesn't really have power and hits ninth in most days. But hey, they're scoring runs. He's been part of it. He will help you for the most part with batting average. The RBIs, I don't expect that to continue too far, but he's also a guy who can steal you some bases. You look, he only has 3 stolen bases on the season. But remember, he missed a large chunk of the season with injury. He only has 172 at bats right now. 2 of those 3 steals have come just since July 31st. So he can get you the occasional steal as well. But for here, I would say the appeal really is, for the most part, batting average, a little bit RBI, but his positional flexibility because he qualifies at second base, third base, and shortstop. All right, now as far as pitching, let's start with the 2 vets, then we'll get to the 2 rookies and another, I think, new closer, at least for now. So we've seen the return of yet another pitcher who has missed the entire season up till now with Tommy John surgery. Tyler Mahle of the Texas Rangers made his season debut finally. This was his first start since April of 2023, but he's back and actually looked pretty good. Now, he did only allow 1 run against the Astros in 5 innings. That's a pretty solid lineup to limit. Only 2 strikeouts, but the good news is his velocity was basically the same as it was pre-surgery. Molly's a guy who's not really got me that interested for fantasy purposes the last couple of years. His best season was in 2020, that shortened 2020 season, and he kind of trended down since then and then leveled off. So he's solid. He's kind of one of those back end rotation pieces that doesn't go too high or low either way. You can put him in there, not worry too much. But I will say I'm encouraged by what I saw. I wasn't ready to buy in on him until I saw what he could do, obviously shaking a lot of that rust off. It looked like he's good to go. And what I like is that even though, yes, he peaked in 2020, since then, his last 4 seasons where he's pitched, he's had an expected ERA under 4 every season. And he can get you strikeouts, although he did in his first start. He's held a 27% K rate also since 2020. I won't go crazy and dump a whole lot of fab to get him. He's not ace type material, nothing like that, but he's definitely worth an add in 12-team leagues or deeper. And those Astros did make a move to help the rotation. Not a really big splashy one, but Yusei Kikuchi is now part of the Astros staff, and it looks like a pretty good move so far. His first 2 starts in Houston only allowed 2 earned runs each time out. But the main thing that catches your attention is the fact that he struck out 19 batters in 11 innings. Now, if you do the math, though, you realize 2 starts, 11 innings. Yeah, he didn't even make it 6 innings either time. So if you're in a league with quality starts, not helpful. He's not a guy who typically goes very deep into games. He's also one who tends to be volatile at times. Like when he's on, but when he's off, you regret having him in there. So I always have been nervous with him. I always worry about when that next blow up start's going to be. So far, so good. Look, going to a team that's definitely a contender might help. At least he can get you some wins. And also in Houston, a guy who's been there almost all year, I think it's time to really buy into Spencer Arrighetti. This is also a case where if you're not paying attention to him specifically or the team, you might not realize he's been really good lately. His season ERA is ugly, 5.33. But let's rewind back to his very first game as a major leaguer. His first appearance, he got lit up. If you just take out that very first game of this season, his ERA drops half a run. Okay, not great still. Okay, what has he done lately though? Over his last 5 starts, a 3.41 ERA and 26 strikeouts over 19 innings. The odd thing is, despite pitching for Houston, where I just told you with Kikuchi, wins are going to be something that you should be looking forward to, with Arrighetti, despite the fact he's been really good lately, he hasn't won a game since June. This really is just bad luck. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'd have to dig further, but I mean, the guy is pitching effectively. He really deserves a win. He just hasn't gotten them. This is something that you really can't predict or control. I figure he's got to win a game somewhere along the line here pretty soon. But either way, he does help you with strikeouts. The ratios have been rock solid. He's just getting better as the season goes on. And then we go to LA. River Ryan has been really good ever since he did get called up. But I'm a little less certain about how long it will last with him because of what their rotation might look like in a couple of weeks. Now, in River Ryan's first 3 starts, he's only allowed a total of 3 earned runs. That ERA is nice and low. He's also somebody who's not going to go too deep into games. But man, the way the Dodgers bullpen is now also getting banged up, just like their rotation has been, they might need him more. But who knows with Walker Buehler potentially coming back, Yamamoto coming back. Ryan could get pushed out of the rotation at some point, but for now, I still think it's worth going with him. He's scheduled to start against Pittsburgh his next time out. That's definitely a good time to put him in your lineup. And while Ryan doesn't get hit hard and he hasn't given up many home runs, he does sometimes get into trouble with the walks. He has walked 3 batters in each of his 3 starts, and he did kind of have a high walk rate throughout the minors. So again, this is a deeper league option, even though he looks better on paper right now than guys like Arrighetti or some of these other pitchers. You got to look a little bit deeper. He's one that's a little more dangerous for fantasy purposes. But again, for his next start, I still think he's a solid option. And if you really want to have fun trying to guess who's the closer in Arizona, let's see. Here are the candidates. Paul Sewald had been the closer all year since last season, but he lost his job. Let's see. They traded for AJ Puck, but it's not him. Oh, and then remember Ryan Thompson when it looked like he was the guy after picking up a save? Nope. It looks like right now it's going to be Justin Martinez. That's right. Justin Martinez. No, I did not know who he was either until I had to look it up when he picked up a couple of saves for the Diamondbacks this past week. Apparently, he's the closer du jour. So, hey, 2 saves and also interesting. He's got 13 Ks just in his last 6.2 innings over the past 2 weeks. Let's buy into it for now. His numbers so far in the season in, limited appearances look really good. And again, you're desperate for closers. At least get a guy who's on a really good team. Speaking of buying, if your league's trade deadline has not passed yet, it's not too late to make some moves. These are the players that I advise buying low on right now while you still can.